Steve, good morning.
Good morning, Chandrasekhar.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
You have a meeting later.
I do, unfortunately. I have an event I have to be at very soon, but I just wanted to provide my best wishes for a great meeting today.
Yeah, thank you. This is going to be a great session.
Will Bob Balo take part?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay.
Can I ask you a favor? I would like to show a photo when I give my presentation. Can you tell me if you can see it when I do this? Can you see the picture then? Is it okay? Yeah?
I can see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then it's okay. It doesn't have to be very clear, but that's okay.
Yeah, no, we can see it clearly.
Yeah? Very nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have 5 copies of that picture.
Do we have 2 Scott Eggers on the call today, or is it just me?
Sorry?
Do we have 2 Scott Eggers on the call today, or is it just me?
No, it is. I think somebody else has joined on your link. So
I think yeah, I think we all have to join on our individual links.
Yeah. So somebody might have joined on your link. So therefore,
sorry.
You are appearing twice.
I'm at the real Scott Eggers.
Yeah, Dan Gold has also joined. I'm still, yeah, Asif said that he's joining.
David, it's good to see you. I thought you were on another link, but you're in the same link. Oh. Oh.
For some reason, I'm not able to turn on my video. Good morning.
Yeah, morning, Asif.
Maybe go this way.
There is some echo, I believe.
When I speak,
No, when I am speaking, there is, I can see this. Do you also hear the echo?
no, I'm not here. I don't know about others.
Yes,
I do.
Just
I
I
do.
didn't hear echo from your
Yes,
side. Just I didn't hear echo from your
I
side.
hear the echo too.
If somebody has joined on two devices, then that echo comes. Mansi,
Yes, sir.
can we solve that echo problem?
Sir, it's on your device, sir.
My device.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, can I ask if you can hear me?
Yes.
Thank you.
twice, yeah.
Asif? Yes, Asif, should we
Yes.
start?
Sure, yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
We're hearing an echo.
You will do the intro.
We're still hearing a bad echo.
I think everyone has to mute. That will help.
Dear friends, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Bonjour, Buenos dias. Tropical and Geographical Neurology Specialty Group of World Federation of Neurology and Indian Academy of Neurology have come together to organize this important series, Inspiring People in Neurosciences. And today we have the 13th session. I welcome you all for this session. Inspirational person today is Professor David Z. He is a living legend as far as eye movements and vestibular disorders are concerned. As neurology residents, we came across two important of the monographs. Diagnosis of stupor and coma by Plum Posner and Neurology of Eye Movements by G and B. And we had a session about Professor Jerome Posner last time, and today we are fortunate that both G and Lee are with us. Welcome Professor David G and John Lee. To chair this important session, we have Professor Asif Sheikh. Asif is Penny and Stephen Winberg Chair in Brain Health at University Hospital in Cleveland. His academic work at the Dorff Dale Ocular Modality Laboratory at the Case Western Reserve University focuses on approaching the complex disorders of vestibular system, eye movements, head movements, gait and balance with biomedical engineering concepts. The overreaching goal is to discover the novel network connections and leverage their influence to modulate the motor circuits artificially for the treatment of intractable neurological conditions. He had various awards: the prestigious American Academy of Neurology Alliance Founders Award, the American Neurological Association Grass Foundation Award in Neuroscience, the AN Career Award, John Stock Award for Excellence in Movement Disorders from the AN, and George C. Kurdzias Memorial Fellowship by the American Parkinson Disease Association. Welcome, Professor Asif Sheikh. I have a great pleasure in welcoming the invited panelists. And for today's session, we have a record-break panelist of 35 panelists. And it shows how Professor David Z has inspired many. And I would like to welcome Ji Soo Kim, Ton Suzuki, Grace Payne, Lee Levy, Peter Trendlerberg, Paul Chang, Nicolas Perez, Richard Lewis, Elena Pritingiani, Amir Kharadman, George Milan, Lance Obstican, Ari Aaron, Shremesh, Haider Jinnah, Alexandra Rufa, Janet Rucker, Marina D. Koning, Scott Eggers, Prem Jarensteinen, Caroline Formet Ticket, Marco Mandela, Daniel Gold, David Newman Toker, Sudhir Kothari, Hiroaki Ichizo, Kiara Standoff, Jan Ege, Stephen Hegman, Philip Kramer, Kimo Stephen, and few more will join. I also like to welcome Professor Wolfgang Risol, WFN President, Professor Steve Lewis, WFN Secretary General, IAN President, Dr. Nirmal Surya, and Dr. Gagandeep Singh, President-elect of Indian Academy of Neurology, Professor Marco Medina, Secretary General of Tropical Neurology Group. And the next session will be about Professor Anita Harding, and I will soon announce the date. So this series is going on extremely well, and there is so much positive feedback, and people are enjoying and learning and getting inspired. So because in this series, we learn about legends who have done great work in their field of neurosciences. And the idea is to ignite the young minds to do outstanding work. And I'm sure you will enjoy today's session. It is going to be a brain-to-brain talk and mind-to-mind talk. I welcome you all once again. And now it is over to you, Professor Asif Sheikh.
Thank you, Dr. Mashram. I found out that echo is coming from me. Do you still hear the echo now that I'm unmuted?
No.
No.
Good, thank God. Okay. So I will share my screen and we'll start. Thank you everyone for joining the panel. Thank you for invitation, accepting our invitation, and thank you, Dr. Mashram, Sudhir, and World Federation for Neurology and Indian Academy of Neurology to help us organize this very important event. So let me share my screen. Do you see my screen?
No.
No. Okay, let me share it.
Mansi, you can change the mode and he wants to share the screen.
Can change the mode and he wants to share the screen.
Do you need a screen? Can't you just tell us what you think?
Do you need a screen? Can't you just tell us what you think?
Acha, Asif, the echo has started again.
Trying to. Asif, the echo has started again. Oh, can I? Interesting.
It also probably can be that somebody has opened the YouTube link elsewhere. One of the panelists.
Let me.
One of the panelists.
Can you mute all the panelists who are apart from the one? Mute all the panelists who are apart from the one who's speaking.
But the thing is that the echo is only coming from. I just realized that from Sir Dr. Sheikh's mic.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Yeah,
now.
we can see your screen now.
So Asif, you're muted.
I think he's requesting to be unmuted.
Yeah, Mansi, please unmute. Asif.
Asif.
He's unmuted, so I think he's just figuring out the echo. Okay, now I know why this is happening. Sir Professor Sheikh, what the problem is that you've joined the meeting from the browser. You'll have to install on your device, and then
Computer, it won't let me install any browser. So, okay, so I will have to flip the computer. So I will have to get off and get on again, because it's my government computer.
Now there is no
It won't let
echo.
me install anything.
Now there is no echo.
Acha,
so
again
when
it
he
started.
talks, there won't be. Only when the others talk, there will be.
Okay.
So can we just mute everybody in interest of time, and then I will mute myself, and when other people are talking, I will flip the computer. That will save time. Can we please do that?
Yes.
Good idea.
Yes.
Okay, now you should be able to see my screen, hopefully, right? Do you? No?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Oh, good.
No, we can't see
No,
this.
not now. No, it was just loading and it's gone back.
Okay. How about
So
now?
Professor Sheikh? No, not yet.
Asif, can you email the presentation to Mansi? There, okay.
Yes.
It's again.
Yeah, it had come just for a while.
Yes, your screen is on.
Yeah.
Yes, Professor Sheikh, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute all the panelists now. And in a second, I will send you a request to unmute yourself.
In a second, I will send you a request.
Okay, I think we are all set. You can just type okay and I will move on. Okay. Can I move on?
Yes, yes.
Yes, your screen is not
Okay.
in full screen.
So, thank you.
Screen is not full screen though.
What?
As in your PowerPoint is not on full screen mode. It's in like we can see it in the
What did you say?
editable.
Your PowerPoint is not on full screen mode. It's in like we can see it in the editable mode.
Okay. Can you see it in a full screen mode now?
No, go to the presentation
No,
mode.
not yet.
No, go to the presentation mode. Not yet.
I am on presentation mode. I think let me just swap the computer. I think that may be a better way to do that. I think this laptop won't let me do it. Or Mansi, can I just share it with you? The link.
Yes, I'll. You want me to share the link again?
Yes, I'll. You want me to share the link again?
No. I'm asking. I'm gonna send you the link to download my presentation.
Yes, absolutely. Please send it. I'll give you my email ID.
Yes, absolutely. Please send it. I'll give you my email ID.
And what I was thinking is, can we just start with Dr. Lee presentation, and then I will go next. Would you do that, or you want me to just wait? My second computer is on. I can just plug it in.
Dr. Daniel Gold has put a message on the chat.
Dr. Daniel Gold has put a message on the
that
chat.
I'm happy to start things off. So Dr. Mishram, you can, I think, take over now. And while Dr. Sheikh joins from the other machine.
Okay. How much time Asif is going to take to rejoin? And can we request Dan Gold to start?
I'm happy to do that. All right. Can you hear me? Everyone's muted.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Excellent. All right. Let me share my screen very quickly. And can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We can see your screen.
Okay, great. So I wanted to get things started with something that Dr. Z wrote. We're all here because we love Dr. Z. And I think that these commandments really exemplify kind of everything that I love about Dr. Z, that I love about neurology, and kind of sums up my entire experience with him. For those of you who haven't seen this, it's excellent. I'm going to present the 10 commandments real quickly, and if you've seen it before, then I'm sure you'll be happy to see it again. So here we go. Number 1, turn your clinic into an experimental laboratory. So we've all seen him do this. His clinical encounters and observations form the basis for a hypothesis that he then explores for weeks to months to years, sometimes decades, I suspect. Number 2, let your clinic satisfy your intellectual curiosity and also provide new and important information about how the brain works and how it can be fixed. There's something to learn from every single patient. And again, I suspect that this is in large part why he still loves to see patients and teach after quite a few years of doing so. Number 3, don't become brain dead and a documenting automaton. So he makes sure that despite the need to document, and he documents thoroughly and comprehensively, this should not be to the detriment of being thoughtful in your history taking and exam. Number 4, don't succumb to the morass of electronic records, billing, coding, protocols, algorithms, and often irrelevant and time-consuming documentation requirements. I think this one speaks for itself. Don't let the tentacles of regulators and administrators turn your brains into bureaucratic mush. So he teaches his learners to not lose perspective on why we're here and to always prioritize that patient who's in front of us. Listen to your patients, carefully examine them, and think. For every question that's asked, for every examination technique or maneuver performed, it's done for a specific and calculated reason. And I always think that I've done everything. And then he always asks me if I've done 5 more, look for 5 more exam findings. And sometimes I think invents new examination techniques, but they're always relevant and of great interest. Number 7, stay alive and curious in the clinic. I love it when we see a patient with an MLF syndrome in the hospital. He's seen that I don't know how many times, hundreds, thousands, and he's still just as excited as the 899th time as he is for the 900th time he's seen that. Use anatomy and physiology to localize, diagnose, treat, and teach. Be Sherlock Holmes or Columbo, not Dr. Watson or Inspector Lestrade. More than anything else, this philosophy kind of sums up what most of us, I think, love about neurology and neurotology and about Dr. Z, and this has inspired many, many people. Number 9, design an experiment. Figure out how the brain works and how to fix it. Again, we've all seen this. The conversation when presenting a patient never ends with kind of the conclusion of that patient. It's always the genesis of a new hypothesis or future discussion. Number 10, write a paper or a book and educate your colleagues. We see an interesting patient. It always turns into something more than just a simple discussion. And I've taken the book thing quite literally. I've written a book. It is a book. It will never be the book. But I really appreciate all the time that I spent with Dr. Z and the privilege that I have to continue to work with him. So thank you very much, Dr. Z. You are amazing.
Thank you, Dan. I think your wonderful 10 commandments and very useful and inspiring. Asif,
I'm back.
Are you fine now?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Sorry, I was on my government computer originally and it would not let me do anything. And for some reason, it would not let me update Zoom. I am back. Should I start?
Yes.
I'm so sorry for all the inconvenience. So I'm
so
going
sorry to interrupt. Have you, I see you're sharing the screen, but have you also shared the link with me?
No, I'm sharing the screen and you should be able to see my screen now. Do you see it? In the
Yes, yes, we can see your screen. Go to the presentation mode.
Yeah, can you see the presentation mode now?
Yes, now we can, yes.
This is the right one that you're supposed to see, correct?
Now it is the presenter's mode.
It's the, yeah, I think he'll just change the settings.
How about now? Are you good?
Yeah,
Yes.
Now it is fine.
All right. Thank you very much. Sorry for all the inconvenience, and thank you, Dr. Z, for letting us do this in your honor today. He is a master of neurotology, Ephraim neuro-ophthalmology, his mastermind of contemporary translational eye movement research, gem of a mentor, as you will hear from many of us today, and very loving husband and an awesome grandfather, as you can see in these pictures here. So in August 14th, 1944, Harry and Pearl Z had an adorable son, David, who grew up in Roger Park's neighborhood of the northern border of Chicago, and early childhood was quite remarkable. He was, his grandfather was connected with some very powerful people. He knew many powerful people. And Dr. Z went to school, and one of his classmates was the congressperson of US House of Representatives. He was always in the company with and friends with some very important people, and of course, he himself is very important to all of us. So when when he was little, he was highly inspired by his uncle, who is a senior in pediatrician. I mean, Dr. Z Senior, who is a pediatrician, and then he went to undergrad in chemistry in Northwestern. He heard of Johns Hopkins when he was very little, when he was in elementary school, in a television show. And then, of course, his uncle, Dr. Z, the senior, who was pediatrician, he influenced him tremendously to go in medicine, to consider medicine as a career. And ultimately, he joined Johns Hopkins as a medical student in 1968. He had to make important career decision in medical school, which was pediatrics, largely inspired by his uncle, who was also his hero and a pediatrician, but also the other field was neurology. And primarily because he was fascinated by neuroscience, inner workings of the brain, seeing Vernon Mountcastle doing his experiments at Hopkins. So what happened, luckily, he went to Mayo Clinic for an elective rotation in medical school. And he happened to work with, at that time, the chairman of neuroanatomy at Mayo, Dr. David Bodian, who himself is known for his work in polio. And what I heard from Dr. Z, in those days, the chairman would teach medical students one-on-one. And Dr. Bodian was teaching Dr. Z one-on-one, and that was quite inspiring for him to consider a career in clinical neurosciences. And of course, I have to say, Dr. Bodian had an eye for a real gem. He trained the right person. He convinced the right person to do neurology for his career. So he decided to do neurology residency. Thank you, Dr. Bodian. So after 1 year of internship in neurology, in internal medicine in New York, he started neurology residency in Baltimore and moved back to Hopkins as a resident. And when he was at Hopkins, he again came into works with Dr. Vernon Mountcastle, but at that time, he was very influenced by another biomedical engineer who used to work at Hopkins BME and Wilmer Eye Institute, David Robinson. the whole idea was that fascinated him is envisioning the brain as a neural circuit and then modeling that circuit with a particular mathematical equation and solving the mathematical equation to solve the disease. And of course, you can imagine that that whole biomedical engineering approach ended up becoming a standard of practice in our field. So this is what I heard from Dr. Z verbatim, that in his second year of neurology residency, he heard a chalk talk from David Robinson, a biomedical engineer, using mathematics and control system to study how brain controls movements and eyes. What can go wrong for disordered eye movement and consistent visual disabilities? And that was really the epiphany, and he used residency electives to work with Dr. Robinson, learn some tools of the trade. It's quite remarkable that how one person in one lecture determines not just future of David Z, but actually it ultimately led the future of the entire field, because as everybody will agree with me, that works of Lee and Z, who were both the students of Dave Robinson, it literally dictated the way our field works now. So it's quite remarkable, actually. So this is David Robinson, and this is Frank Walsh. So while he was doing residency, he came in to introduce with Dr. Frank Walsh, who was professor of neuro-ophthalmology, and he took him under his wings, supported his interest in neuro-ophthalmology. Very supportive and generous mentor for beginners, and very good teacher. It's very important that one comes into contact with a very important teacher early on in your career. And of course, Dr. Z was one of the beneficiaries, but not just that. He continued the legacy of his teachers. He keeps supporting his fellows and his residents and his students with same level of generosity, with same level of motivation, with same level of encouragement. And here you are, you have 50, 60 fellows, and many of them are highly successful, and they bring their legacy back. So it's very important and to carry forward the legacy of your teachers, and that is what he exactly did. While at Hopkins, he also got introduced to some works that was done at NIH. So after residency, he went to NIH for 2 years of research in public health services at NINDS, which of course provided him unique opportunity to study with patients, unusual problems that could not be studied elsewhere, understanding more about the brain. And that's when he met another giant in ophthalmology, David Cogan, who was head of ophthalmology in Harvard and then moved to NIH. And that was the time when Z got to work with him. He found him very generous, very supportive, again, the good teacher. And these all teachers that he worked with made big impression on him. And then he carried forward his teacher's legacy to train his students. Went back to Hopkins on neurology faculty, as you can see, very young David Z early on in his career at Hopkins, with a very small Hopkins department, which I believe is much bigger than that now. But this is how neurology started in this country. One unique thing, geographic location of Hopkins in proximity to NIH, many friends that Z made at NIH allowed him to continue collaboration with biomedical engineering and NIH. And that collaboration went on for decades and decades, and there were many beneficiaries of that collaboration, not just him, but many of his students, many of his fellows. And this is on the left side, what you see is one of the very interesting looking analog computer, which he used for his first simulation of downbeat nystagmus. So this is where the science was happening in 1960s on analog computers, and just right mix of somebody who does clinical neurology with biomedical engineering and engineering. And the picture on the right side, you can see Lance Opticon, who will be speaking today. He was a PhD student with David Robinson when Z met him, and then on their relationship went on forever. And Lance moved to NIH, and he was the computational mind, and he was the partner. And Fred Miles and David Robinson with Dave Z in this picture. So the NIH history went on, like we said, since 1973 till now. As you can see in this chart, from very young age in 1973 to 1982, 1991, every 10 years, there would be a long-term sabbatical or trip to NIH, and something most remarkable comes out of that trip, as you can see. And then, of course, he would take some of his fellows with him too, including myself. I had fun going to Bethesda with him all the times. So not just that, he's also a world traveler. And this is his first passport picture. We are convinced, and Newman Toker once told me that there is hardly a corner of a world that Z has not been to, and he has not taught eye movements in that people. There was once upon a time, the number of neurologists in one African country multiplied by 5 times. That was when Z went to Africa with 3 or 4 of his colleagues, and there was one other neurologist practicing there. So for that week, they had 5 times more neurologists. We have never heard of some of the countries that he had visited and he has traveled and made friends with. He is a truly global scientist and a global clinician. He has friends from all over the world, all over the planet, and he travels everywhere. He does sabbatical everywhere, and he adopts and gets the best out of all the cultures, which is very remarkable and impressive. And of course, I will not say name by name all these fellows because you will hear from them yourselves today. And this is one of the recent trip to Egypt. I will play this video. And real spinning trip. I think Dr. Z studies VR habituation in these people there. So his fellows came from everywhere in the world. They took his legacy back to their home country. And of course, you will talk to all of them. You will hear from all of them today. So I won't show their pictures individually now. You will actually see them speaking live. Very important thing through all that was his partnership with John Lee, and they had worked ever since late 70s, early 80s, when John Lee moved to Hopkins as a fellow initially, and then as a faculty working in neurology department with David Robinson. This is one of the early picture with David Robinson, where you can see Z and Lee in the same picture. Then they were motivated to write Lee and Z book by another senior neurologist. And ultimately, they wrote first edition. And then finally here, Lee and Z working together, doing final touch up on their last edition that they published in 2016. So with that note, I want to introduce Dr. John Lee, who will be coming next.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Dr. Lee.
Try and share my screen if I can. Non-trivial. Okay. Okay, do you have that?
Yeah, we can see that.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thanks for inviting me to make some brief comments in this session. Dave's influence on me started actually before I came to America, when I was in Newcastle still. And it's when I read his paper, yeah, there we go, on downbeat nystagmus. And the sentence that jumped out at me was, eye movement abnormalities, such as nystagmus, can be better understood by considering them as disorders of control systems. That was a novel idea to me. Well, when I got to New York, I wrote to Dave, and he replied in a letter in 1976. I was very glad to hear from someone interested in eye movement. And he gave me a warm welcome to the lab and his home. And perhaps most important, he helped me while I was at Hopkins, because although I felt like I was in intellectual heaven, it was the Robinson lab was like curiosity central. You know, this actually applies to me. I had difficulty seeing things because suddenly, as a neurologist, I was thrown into a world of mathematics and control systems. And Dave helped me with that enormously, patiently answering my questions. Often, as we rode in his car, which we call the dinosaur. I should just point out here, distinguished late neuro-ophthalmologist David Tomlinson and his wife Yoko. Anyway, the thing looking back is that he used his imagination. Whenever I came up with a harebrained idea, he used his imagination to develop a line of thought, a hypothesis, an experiment, and predicted outcome. In addition to that, he was very supportive. He promoted my career, generous with co-authorship, included me in his projects. I'm sure this is a story for all his fellows, what I experienced firsthand in those 6 years. He's always finding the best in people. Nobody's too humble. He's respectful of everyone. He's certainly resistant to bombast and pomposity, and is very quickly dismisses that with his quick wit. He has always made an effort to travel and see people, colleagues elsewhere. I remember him going to Medellin, time when Colombia was not a safe place. Always inclusive, making opportunities, suggesting new ideas and approaches. And one singular quality, I think, stands out, which perhaps is overlooked, and that is he maintains calm. And if you'll excuse me, I think the best way I can express this is what Hamlet said to his friend Horatio. For thou hast been as one in suffering all that suffers nothing. A man that fortune's buffets and rewards has taken with equal thanks. And blessed are those whose blood, in other words, emotion, and judgment are so well commingled that they're not a pipe for fortune's finger to sound what stop she please. Well, with the passage of time, including 5 editions of our book, my respect and admiration for Dave has grown. You've seen these photos before. And despite the demands made on our partnership writing the book, we continue to work well together. And this is in no small measure due to Dave's patience. And I should say, he's always pushed the bounds of the book. Whenever a new edition came along, he was always looking for ways to make it better. And then finally, personal friendship. Dave is always somebody I turn to. His inspirational conversations, emails, always has something new and exciting to impart, providing hints and suggestions. And he's always been someone I could turn to with personal problems. Because he has integrity, although he always will point out what the truth is. He would never be shy about that. Now, one other thing that sets Dave apart in my mind is there are many distinguished people who are inspirational, but often they're personally unapproachable. They're aloof, remote, or difficult to talk to. But besides being inspirational, Dave is always approachable and accessible. So Dave, on behalf of me, my students and colleagues, thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lee.
Not quite sure how to get out of here. So I think Marina is on call and she has to leave sometime soon. So if you would like to go in first, Marina, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah?
we can.
Okay. Well, David, it's an enormous pleasure and honor that I can have a few minutes of time as well. I must say, looking back, you have been a very special part of my training, and there are actually three things I would like to mention. One is the high quality of the research that you showed me and that I learned that it must be clinically relevant and translational by more understanding the brain. And it was an enormous pleasure that we recently were able to join you with your eye movement disorders and me with movement disorders in a very nice review. But what you learned me as well was that the personal touch, and I would like to show this picture, and I hope you can see it. This is in the lab 35 years ago when I visited David, and you might recognize Vinny and Lieren, the technician, and Vinny, the secretary. And what I just loved about you is that your lab is your work, your family at work. So, which means that they're all part of the team. And I think that's not always the case. And I really try to do that myself in my own lab environment and in my clinics, that we have all together a group of people with a very huge interest, human interest between each other. And what I really like that we could add, I was in the lab together with my dear friend Chiara Straathoff. And what we did, we introduced something to the lab, which is the Dutch tea time. And we gave David these 2 mugs. And I took 1 mug and I still have it and use it on a regular basis, as we have in the Netherlands this habit of drinking tea at around 3 o'clock and then just have a little break and have a chat. So David, I hope you still do that. And then I come to my third point, which I think is the most important one, and that's already shown by the previous lectures, that you know how to enjoy life. And I think that's the main part of life, right? You like to travel, you give fantastic lectures, you have a house in Italy where you live part of the year. When you come to the Netherlands, you send me a message that you want to eat bitterballen together with me. And when I'm in Italy, you just immediately pick me up to have a drink in Siena. And I think that's really a marvelous habit. And again, I really try to do that the same with my group of PhDs and postdocs, so that we have all this very nice feeling of enjoying work and enjoying life. This is my third and final picture. It was a great pleasure for me that you came to the Netherlands when I gave my oratie for my professorship. And I think that really illustrates how wonderful you are in personal interest, that you came all the way, to join that ceremony. And so I really appreciated that. So those are my words for you, David. And I would say keep enjoying life and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
I just have to say, if it ain't Dutch, it ain't much.
That's what you always said, right? And that's right.
Thank you, Marina. So I will ask if Lance is able to speak. He is one of David Z's, one of the oldest friends.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I have known David for a long time. He's been a great friend, a mentor, and a colleague. Many of those trips to the NIH were to visit the Laboratory of Sensory Motor Research, where I worked along with Fred Miles, and it was always wonderful to have David, and sometimes we got both David and John come to work with us. I remember an attempt to get funding for them to come for one of their sabbatical visits. And I went to my scientific director and I said, well, we need to have these guys here because they're such amazing scientists, clinicians, and we need a little bit of funding. And he said very sagely, no, they only want to come to work on another version of their book. And I said, so what's wrong with that? And he thought about it and he said, okay, they can come. But it was really wonderful to have them visit. And I learned a lot from having David as a mentor and a collaborator, not only scientifically and clinically, but also just as a warm person. One thing I learned from David through his interactions with everyone around, including the staff and the patients, is that he treated everybody with warmth and respect. He always regarded people in the lab, whether they were scientists or clinicians or staff members, with the same regard. And it was a very great lesson for me to learn that you have to treat people as people and not simply as elements in your lab that you can have transactions with. And so I don't know if I've learned that lesson completely, but I certainly think that's one of David's greatest charms, is that he really is a people person. And we used to always think about what we needed to have people we needed to have contact with, or we wanted to find out something. And we always, instead of going to that person, we would go to David, because we knew that he would have an association with that person, and that if we could get a recommendation from David, they would talk to us. So we always wanted to loop David in, and I think it's led to a wonderful career for me and many of the people at NIH who just enjoyed so much having him visit us. So David, I want to thank you personally and tell you how much I've always appreciated having you in my life and in my career. And I wish you great future progress and many, many trips around the world, although I suspect now they'll all mostly be just to Italy. Thank you.
Thanks, Lance.
Lance, you forgot to mention you had to apply for separate funding to pay for parking for his fellows, right?
Yes, I had one of the nice things about working with David is he would always send people to me, and he would say, "I have this really great young neurologist or young scientist," and he'd say, "Can you take him in your lab?" And I would always say no, because I never had space or funding. And then David would always say, "Oh well, but you can find room for this person." And in fact, one of those people was Asif. I had the great pleasure of working with him in my lab. And because I don't have really a lot of room, when Asif would drive down to visit me, because of course Baltimore and Bethesda are only about 45 miles apart, he would have to park in our parking structure. And then he would come and he would sit with me or stand, since I have a standing desk, in my office, and we would work until I got worn out, and then I would leave and he would still be there working all night. And so I found out that you can get little parking stickers to validate people who come to visit you. And so I applied for some parking money, and we got a little sheet of stickers. And every time Asif came, we would put a little sticker on. And he ended up costing the lab hundreds of dollars in parking stickers. And every time I gave him a sticker, I had to sign a little sheet saying that I knew where the sticker had gone. And after about 2 months, someone came in and said, Lance, he said, you're the only person signing out stickers. And he said, who are you using them for? And I thought, well, if I say Asif Sheikh, they'll say, who is that? So I said, they're for David Z. And everyone went, okay. And then that was it. So, but yes, Asif did cost me a fortune in parking stickers.
It was always a lot of fun. So I think what we will do, unless we have a other strategy, is I will just go by the list, which I just jotted down here. Again, it has nothing to do with your seniority or closeness to David. I simply just wrote it the way it was on my screen. So I will just say the name, and we will use that person, and I will check mark. Is that okay? So Janet, please allow me to introduce you, and would you please say something about David?
Thank you so much for including me today. I initially met David Z through my mentor, John Lee, when I was young faculty at Case Western. And I've learned many, many things from both of them and tried to emulate their styles of looking at individual patients very carefully in the clinic. So to echo a little bit of Dan Gold's 10 Commandments that he shared from David, one of the first things that has really jumped out at me from David's talks is don't work in silos. Get out, go to meetings, meet people, forge collaborations with basic scientists. And I also have had the pleasure of working and doing some projects and explorations on individual patients with Lance Optican. And second, keep your eyes open. There's so much to learn about a single patient in clinic, and it really does keep you engaged and excited to be in the clinic. Third, always, always support and mentor young people. David and John did that for me. I continue to try to do that for people who come through our institution as well. And last, Asif mentioned the Great Conversations piece that was published in the Journal of Neuro-Ophthalmology in 2020. I had the great honor of spending an hour or two with John and David and interviewing them about their careers and their influences and the book. And there's so much wonderful information in there and anecdotes that are a lot of fun to read. I refer you to it for one about David Z doing a pneumoencephalogram on his own with Neil Miller. But the anecdote that I would like to leave you with is David Z as a resident, when he spent time with Frank Walsh, told him about his interest in eye movements. And Dr. Walsh reportedly said, well, someone has to be interested in the minutia of neuro-ophthalmology. So congratulations, David, on the career that ensued and on decades of inspiration for many.
Thanks.
Thank you, Janet. Jisoo, would you be able to speak a little?
Hi, David. Hi there. Now it's near to the midnight in the middle of big holidays, the full moon holidays in South Korea. So it's like kind of a Thanksgiving Day in the United States. And congratulations, David, and thank you for having me in this privileged meeting. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to be his fellow. Indeed, I once applied for a fellowship when I was forced to this field after the neurology residency training in South Korea in 1997. And at the time, I couldn't tell neuro-ophthalmology from neuro-otology. So I mailed him for a neuro-ophthalmology fellowship, and he replied to me that he will introduce me to Dr. Miller if I want to. So anyhow, I ended up getting a fellowship in Los Angeles and Toronto. And after I came back to Korea after the fellowship training, he visited our country in 2005. And during his visit, I had the chance to talk to him personally, and ever since, he became my mentor, and he also opened the door for me to the international oculomotor community. Since then, I have consulted all the interesting cases to him, and we have written numerous papers together, and his responses were always immediate and insightful, and played a pivotal role in resolving the unsolved issues for me. So also, and he recently gave me an honor to join the authors for the next edition of the Neurology of Eye Movement, and I'd like to express my sincere appreciation for the opportunity, and I should also deliver the best regards from the colleagues in Korea. So please, David, stay safe and healthy, and thank you, Asif and Meshram, for arranging this wonderful meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Jisoo.
Thank you, Jisoo. And yes, indeed, it's a big honor that Jisoo, Janet, and myself got from Lee and Z to carry forward their next edition. It's a huge responsibility. For me, I feel it's bigger responsibility than raising my son.
How are those drafts coming along, by the way?
We are working hard, Dr. Lee. I was awake till 4 a.m. Grace Pang was a fellow working with David Z many years ago. Grace, would you please like to share with us some of your words?
Sure. Thank you, Asif, for inviting me to this very inspirational meeting. And when I was thinking about this theme of inspiration, so first of all, I am not a clinician. I'm an engineer by training. And I'm also, for the last 20 years, not been in research, but on the other side in terms of government work. And yet Dave still welcomes me and talks to me. So, but when I was thinking about what makes someone or something inspirational, I was thinking that it's really the reaction that is created in each of us that moves us from inside. So I just decided to list all the qualities of Dave that popped in my mind. And a lot of you all have already said all of these things. But it really resonated with me since I first met him in the early 90s when I invited him as a grad student to Northwestern University. My advisor, Barry Peterson, had a grant which required graduate students to find speakers from around the world to come visit, but we had to do all the work to do the invitation. So we all knew about David Z, but it was a daunting task to send him a written invitation to ask for his CV, which came back to be about 50 pages back then. And we were all not sure what to expect when he came to visit. And yet, like everyone was saying, he came to us as grad students and talked to us one-on-one as if we were really important. And that was my first impression of David, was that he's really relatable. And at that time I was doing cross-axis adaptation of the VOR in a pitch chair, and he wanted to sit in the pitch chair with the optokinetic drum. And so from there, I went and did a postdoc in the fellows room at Hopkins as an engineer. And here you see room 2, for those of you who remember room 2. And David was always first to be a subject of mine. But not only that, as an engineer, I really admired how much he appreciated engineering and systems thinking and coding himself. He was a MATLAB programmer. And so it was just very rewarding to have him be my mentor. And now as a public servant at the NIH, where I'm on the other side of the research realm, I strive to emulate what I've learned from Dave and trying to understand who you are serving and to really try to serve others in the way he served all of us. And I really do appreciate having this time to honor him. So thank you, Dave. And he, I think, is the only one in the world who knows my middle name. So I wrote it out for you. Thank you, Dave.
Terrific, Grace. Thanks.
Thank you, Grace. Jan Yagi, how are you?
I'm here. I hear you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Shall I say something?
Please do.
You know, this is so good to see you all. I recognize many of you. It was actually 31 years or 32 years since I came to Hopkins as a postdoc. And I think these almost 2 years I spent there, I think they were the best time in my life up until now, actually. We had a great time, the whole family. We came with 3 kids and we went back with 4 kids. So we had a great time. And I really appreciated the teaching I got and the pedagogics that David gave me. And the thing that always investigate patients' eye motility, whatever the disease might be, because there might be a little clue to the diagnosis and also the follow-up of the patient. So I've tried to use that in my clinical career. I'm now retired, but see a lot of small kids in a small practice. But still, I always try to look for eye motility because I think that's so very important if you want to know something about the brain in both health and disease. So I won't be long. I thank you so much. I really admire you so much, and you meant so much to me in my career. So good luck and so good to see you again.
Thanks, Jan.
Thank you, Jan. Allow me to introduce Scott Edgar, who was also a fellow with Dr. Z. Scott, please.
Thanks, Asa. Hi, David. Let's see, where'd you go on my screen here? I'll find you. There you are. Well, it's been 20 years since my time in Baltimore as your fellow. And as I reflect on the inspiration you gave me during my time there, I think of 3 traits of yours that I've always tried to live up to. The first is your generosity with your time and resources. And I very fondly recall the one-on-one teaching sessions on Friday afternoons in your office, reviewing tough cases together, going through your teaching slides, and sharing your immense video and PowerPoint library with me to help me jumpstart my own teaching career. The second is your warmth and humility. You're always approachable by colleagues, students, and your patients. And you make everyone that you interact with feel respected, heard, liked, and appreciated. And you're quick to give everyone else the credit for work that you've led. And the third is your infectious enthusiasm and powers of observation. You always seem to find something exciting and teachable with the seemingly most mundane or frustrating cases. And then, of course, you translate those tiny, easily overlooked observations into revelations about how the brain works, something that most of us only could aspire to. So thank you for everything you've given me, but especially your inspiration to be a better clinician, scientist, teacher, and human being.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Scott. I also want to add, when Scott was a fellow with Z, at the same time, there was another fellow who is Mark Walker, who really wanted to join today, but he said he could not. He had an important commitment that Z will be very proud of, but he's gonna write. He gives his best regards, and he was not able to join. Another clinician scientist fellow that Z trained was Amir Kharadman, who would love to share some words with us. Amir, do I see you here?
Yeah,
There
I'm
we-
here. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, please.
Great. So I'm going to actually share my screen here. If I can figure out how to do that. Am I allowed to share, Asif?
Yes, you should.
You can share.
Okay. Okay. Good. You should see a blue screen there.
Yeah, it says COVID's Bell's palsy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. So now you should see my screen.
The Hopkins.
Right. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I want to really reiterate what others have really said about David. And this is a picture that I think it really sums up what people like David have contributed to names like Hopkins. And I think this is where we are from that black and white picture that Asif showed earlier when a small department of neurology started here at Hopkins. Now we have so many colors and complex components added to Hopkins. So I also had the privilege of being mentored by David and learned a lot from him more than a decade. And as we heard from everyone, and we're going to hear more from people, David is the kind of scientific father you want to have. And he has a trenchant style and artfully subtle in making points. So I thought this is a timely occasion to go to the master of metaphor, the Persian poet Hafez. And just to quickly tell you who Hafez is, he's a master that is given the title of the tongue of unseen, and people go to his book of poems and randomly open a page to consult him about what is on their mind and set a mood for an occasion or get answers. So I thought this is very timely that we go to Hafez for a divination, and this is what the process called divination on David Z. And I picked this poem, which I thought was very pertinent and can really sum up everything I admire about Z. So I'm going to read the poem here, and bear with me. Whoever had found the way to the tavern's block would have to be insane if on another door to knock. One who seeks the obedience of insane in the creed, logic, and sanity they mock. Whoever finds their way into the tavern, from the bounty of the wine, the temple's secrets unlock. One who reads the secret of this wine found the secrets of the path upon which we walk. My heart asked not for the goblet charms, because it knew the ways of the clock. From the pain of the fading star, I told so much, the moon spied, Venus my eyes struck. Time never crowned anyone with sage, unless they considered it the highest luck. Who talks about the story of Hafez and his cup? Not the sheriff, but the king who knows the flock. The noble king who considers the 9 heavens a mere crevice in his courtly block. So, well, that's Hafez. And I have to say that these translations don't really do it justice, but that's what we have. And as David usually says, it could be worse. David, thank you for being here with us, and thank you for inspiring us always.
Thanks very much, Amir.
Thank you, Amir. Another clinician scientist that David trained was Richard Lewis, who is also with us here. And Rick, would you please like to say something?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Hello? Good. So, hi, David. I don't know where you are, if you're in Italy or Ellicott City. I always felt very close to David. We have some interesting parallels in our background. We actually grew up about 4 blocks away from each other. He was on the Chicago side and I was on the Evanston side of Howard Street. And we both went to Northwestern. We did our neurology residencies at Hopkins. And then we ended up, well, because I worked with him, doing work that was fairly similar, both in animals and humans. I ended up spending 9 years with Dave as first as a fellow and then on the faculty. I even house sat for him once, which didn't go particularly well with his dog and cat, but despite that, he's remained nice to me. So what I learned from him, I think there's a certain amount of we all feel similar things, I think, because I have a little list, but many people have already commented on similar aspects. But basically, the main thing I learned was that, which I've struggled with, is to make your work fun, to make it interesting, and to share that enthusiasm and interest with the people around you. And I think he does that brilliantly, and it's not an easy thing. As other people have mentioned, I think as clinicians or as MDs doing research, thinking about research when we're seeing patients and thinking about patients when we're doing research is really where we fit in the academic world. I think the translational space is the most important, and as many of you have mentioned, that's something that he has done brilliantly. Don't micromanage your trainees. This is something that I've struggled with a lot myself, and he and David Robinson, I think, tended to give people working under him fairly long leashes to succeed or fail. And then the last thing is the one that other people have mentioned, which is maybe the most notable, which is that I always found that he treated everybody with the same courtesy and respect, whether they were someone who one might consider important or not. And I think that's a great life lesson, not just for work, but for how we live our lives. So I want to thank David. I always felt very close to you, even though I haven't been at Hopkins for 23 years now. And thanks for inviting me, and I wish you the best.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Rick. Alina, would you like to say something?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
So, hi everybody. To begin, I met Professor Z during my residency in neurology in Siena, thanks to Professor Alessandra Ruffa, and I was immediately fascinated by the enthusiasm the two of them had for studying eye movement. What impressed me most was the capacity of Professor Z to observe a future of the movement of the eyes and to translate it into a precise neurological network function. Eye movement studying, as presented by Professor Z, seemed to satisfy my innate need to find clear answers to complex questions. Thus, I decided to be involved in the field. And thanks to the support of Professor Z, Professor Lee, and Professor Ruffa, I moved during my PhD to the Laboratory of Sensory Motor Research at the National Institute of Health to study eye movement control under the brilliant supervision of Dr. Lance Optica. I stayed there 5 years in the US for a postdoc, and during the time, I also had the privilege of attending the ataxia clinic at Johns Hopkins University, where I learned to share with Professor Z another of his passions, the cerebellum. So eye movement and the cerebellum became the focus of my research and clinical activity. And now, finally settled in Switzerland, I am contributing to develop an eye movement and ataxia clinic and the cerebellar rehabilitation program. During all this year, I could appreciate the exceptional human and scientific qualities of Professor Z, his deep understanding of the mechanism of functioning of the brain, his capacity to unfold a scientific issue in oriented questions that could lead to methodic answers, his generosity in sharing his broad knowledge and experience with an outstanding clarity, but also his innate talent to understand human nature and resonate with others' people's feeling that made him so beloved by patients, collaborators, and friends. So I ended up by sharing many personal and professional moments of my life with him. And while I could distinguish easily the personal from the professional moments, I'm not quite sure Professor Z can ever really detach from his job. And here, for example, I would like to share with you a little video. Can you see my screen?
No, we are not.
Okay, let me see. If you can, just a second.
You will have to share the screen.
Yeah. Can you let me share? Yeah. Okay. Now you can.
No, you can. Everybody has the rights.
Can you see now?
No.
No, we can't. You have the video open in front of you?
Sorry?
Do you have the video in front of you?
I do have it in the screen.
You may have to share the entire screen, not the window.
Yes. So can you see yourself on Zoom?
Wait. No, I can't. But maybe
you can minimize your video for now. Minimize it, not close it, just minimize it. And then you will be able to see yourself on Zoom.
Yeah, can you?
Yes, we can see you. Can you see yourself?
Do you see the green share screen button at the bottom?
No, actually, so now, no, I actually don't, but I don't want to to waste your time. So can you see me now in Zoom?
We see you, but not the video.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know why I cannot share my, probably, share.
What you can do is, if you are getting the green share screen button, you can click on it once and you can choose the very first option. That is either it'll be the full, like entire screen or full screen. Or
yeah, but perhaps I can show it to you in my.
Or can I give you my mobile? Sorry, can I give you my email ID and you can share it with me and we can let the next person talk and we can then show the video.
Oh yeah, definitely. We can do like that then. Okay.
Yeah,
perfect.
so I'll share my email ID in the chat, in the Zoom chat.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Thank you, Alina. We will see you again with your video. We'll see you again with your video.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Speaking of Italy, we have two more colleagues from Italy. Marco Mandela, you're right next to Alina. Please, would you like to say something?
Yes, thank you. As I wrote, and thank you very much, because you know I have a double responsibility, but also a double honor, because I would like to show you something from Professor Daniele Nuti that cannot be present. Okay, so this is from Professor Daniele Nuti, and I'm going to read his words for Professor Z. My words about David concern David's world outside of science. I just say that David has substantially changed my professional life by teaching me both the approach to research and to patients with dizziness. So I would say a few things about David's unscientific version. I was therefore very lucky to meet David in Siena more than 30 years ago, thanks to Eugenio Mira, professor of otolaryngology in Pavia, Italy. Even luckier to become his friend, especially since David and his sweet wife Paulette bought a house in a small village near Siena, Tegoia. Indeed, we share many interests, such as photography, including Paulette, who's very good with camera. David loves to travel. Here we are in the area of Vertigo, in the mountains of northern Argentina with Jorge Cattà. David is a big fan of many sports, and here you can see him with Paulette at the Kentucky Derby. He loves basketball and is a fan of the Boston Celtics in the NBA and of the Duke in NCAA. Incidentally, David shared his birthday, August 14th, with Dominic Strauman, his secretary Rebecca, and my wife Maria Laura. And this is an additional reason to meet. Finally, I show you the image of David being officially welcomed into Tartuca Contrada in Siena, one of the 17 parts into which Siena is divided since the 17th century. He confessed to me that he was at least as excited as in occasion of the scientific award he received in his career. And his sons and grandchildren have also been involved in the adventure just this year. And this is from Daniele Nuti. I will say just a few words from my side, so I will continue to share. So for me, I'm still a super happy student that David has been a wonderful mentor. I won't tell you who introduced me to David, as it's pretty obvious. It was Daniele Nuti. And I would just like to remember that I was really a young student, that I was going to present my degree thesis, and David Z was in the audience that day for my dissertation of my medical degree thesis. And can you imagine what it meant for me? I have to say also that the thesis was in Italian and very short, as used in Italy. And so it was really something, you know, unbelievable to me. Then I would also have the chance to attend the meeting where I saw most of you for the first time in my life, the clinical and basic ocular motor research that was held in Siena in 2004. And that my first year of residence, I got the privilege also to have a paper with David and Daniele Nuti that was from the data from my thesis. And, you know, to me, it was, you know, I had my degree in Siena, and to have a mentor like David Z was, you know, something unbelievable. It was like in Luffy looking to an unidentified object. And what I learned mainly from David, and what I think to remember every day, is that I think that right now friendship and esteem are essential both in research and clinical management. I learned from him to be trying to be creative, innovative, but always to pay attention, not to fall in love with your ideas. And this was an important lesson to me. And you have to be happy anytime you can demonstrate your ideas are right or wrong. equally. You know, I know it's not easy, but it's something important. And another thing that, you know, it was something really important to me is that we don't have to be afraid to share our ideas. And you cannot imagine in all those years that I know David, how many things I asked him, from medicine to neurology to many other life things. And one thing that it's incredible from David is that he's always the same with colleagues, with students, with anyone working, collaborating with him. And this is another big inspiration. And you cannot imagine how many inspiration I got also from what we call a research lunch or dinner in Tartuca or at Chip in Siena. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Really, thank you very much, David. You changed my life. Thank you.
Grazie mille, Marco.
Thank you, Marco. May I introduce Carolyn Fremont Tilliket. Carolyn, please.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I'm very proud to be here. So I spent a year and a half in David's lab almost 30 years ago. At this time, I was a resident in neurology, and it was for research training. And I had no subspecialty and no career plans. So as you, all of you, he teaches me fundamental aspects of vestibular and oculomotor physiology, its application to clinical signs and disease mechanism. He spent a lot of time explaining me research, quality of data recording, essence of data analysis and interpretation of data, and integrity and professionalism in research. And I try to apply these skills in my career. He importantly trusted me at this time and gave me the opportunity to write my first manuscripts and to be first author of these manuscripts. I also attended the clinics with David, which gave me the opportunity to learn vestibular and oculomotor examination from the leading expert in the field. And he took a bunch of time explaining me what he found in patients and his clinical reasoning case by case. So this research and clinical exposure later determined the direction of my clinical career. So when I came back in Lyon, in France, following this excellent training, I developed my own academic career and became assistant professor and then full professor. And I am an expert in France in neuro-otology and neuro-ophthalmology and a teacher in physiology, neurophysiology. So I could not have been successful in my career without David's mentorship. He gave me motivation, passion. He took the time to train me in various aspects. Gave me the keys to develop an independent academic career and continued to follow my career and give me valuable advices. He was the first one, and you are the first one, David, who saw my potentials and gave me self-confidence to employ them at different stages of my career. So you were a tremendous and outstanding mentor. And also, I want to add that you are such a generous and funny guy. Thank you, David.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Thank you, Carolyn. We will come back to this side of the pond again for a bit. May I introduce Dr. Kramer?
Hi, thank you for having me. What I want to talk about is actually what David taught me, probably the most important thing he taught me, and it wasn't something in science. And I've told him about this before, but I'm dyslexic, and I was extremely poor at writing. And I started medicine late, so I did my fellowship. I was 42, and at 42, I couldn't write. When it came down to our first manuscript together, I gave him my copy, which was printed out. And when he gave it back, the first page had more red on it than there was black. And he didn't rewrite it. He made me rewrite it. And there were several versions to it. And by the time I left David, I could write and write well. It's aided me in many ways. I'm now the mayor of my town, and I couldn't have gotten there without him taking the time that no one else had in my life to teach me how to write. And then the other comment was your hypothesis and brilliance of the look up, look down, VOR adaptation, changing gain with vertical eye movement, based on the fact that we can do that when we use bifocals or not, I just thought was absolutely brilliant. And I've always admired you just for that one thing. So thank you, David. Thank you for all you gave me.
Thanks, Phil. Good to see you.
Thank you, Phil. The next fellow that trained with Z was Jorge Otero Milan, who is here with us. Jorge, would you like to share a few words with us, please?
Hi, thank you. Sure. Thanks for including me. So I just wanted to highlight, like others have said, how nice of a person David is. So when I was looking for a postdoc after I finished my PhD, I contacted him, even though I had never met him. But unfortunately, at that time, he was finishing up the last edition of the book, so he didn't have time to take another fellow. And in this situation, most people would just either not reply or reply with a quick no email. But he didn't. He sent me an email explaining the situation and suggesting me other people I should reach to get another opportunity. And not only that, but the next day, he sent another email out of the blue saying that actually he could probably go to work to the lab and work with Amir. And that was my start. And I ended up working with Amir and also with David for quite a while and other people at Hopkins. And I think this is a very, very good example of his generosity and kindness. So thank you so much, David. Glad to be here.
Thanks, Jorge.
Thank you, Jorge. One housekeeping thing. Can we please bring Michael Fetter and Nicolas Perez from the spectators to panelists? While we do that, let me introduce our next speaker, Dr. Sudhir Kothari.
Hi, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. Where's that? Yeah. Okay, so why I'm going to talk about why I owe so much to David. I'm not going to talk about him as a teacher. Everybody has spoken about him and all the work that he has done. Everybody knows about that, but I'm going to talk about personally what he has done for me. So first, when I was studying my DM during 1983, I came across his book, The Neurology of Eye Movements. And at that time, I used to be interested in maths, and then seeing all that integration and pulse step, it was fascinating. I mean, I never thought neurology or anything in medicine can be so elegant. And it got me really hooked. And then from there on, the next step was neuro-otology. And then we listened to him. Actually, he had come down to India. Dr. Singhal, my teacher, had invited him for a meeting. And to actually listen to him and see how he taught, seeing how passionate he was about eye movements, about showing little nystagmus and how it is beating to the side and up and down, and the way he showed it repeatedly to those who are not understanding, his patience and his persistence in making sure that everybody in the audience would understand what he was saying. So he is a fantastic teacher. And at that time, after the meeting, I was just talking with him. I was a rookie, sort of just barely passed out at that time. And I just said, I dream someday that I shall invite you to India. And I never knew this would happen. I had emailed him, and then it actually happened. We devised a course in Powai. That was in 2009. We made a course in neuro-otology and neuro-ophthalmology. And of course, David straddled both. So he did the efferent neuro-ophthalmology, Valerie and Nancy did the afferent, etc. And we had a number of people doing the neuro-otology. And that was the first course we did. And it was really, it went off very well. We had almost 250, 300 people across India attending it. And neuro-ophthalmology and neuro-otology started taking off from that side. For me, it was something like this Ekalavya. We have a story. We have a guy who, he could not get access to this guru. So he made a statue of that guru and put him in front and would study, learn how to do archery with that guru in front of him. And he learned from him. So I had written to David at that time that it is good to have a guru like in our tradition. And at that time itself, I told him that you have a bad habit of climbing higher and higher. So, the distance never narrows, but still it's worth chasing you, whatever you're doing and trying to learn from you. So we formed this thing called Forum for Indian Neurology Education. And again, here, whenever we had to invite any international speaker, initially people were very skeptical, but the minute David wrote to them or said that he had been one of the speakers, everybody would just fall into line. And, he was our biggest brand ambassador. And we did almost for the last so many years till COVID, we used to do 2 or 3 courses every year, whether it was epilepsy, movement disorders, neuromuscular, etc. But this whole thing was set up by David, and I owe it all to him. And finally, soon after the Powai, that is soon after that 2009 meeting, I had myself a vague febrile illness and headache after the meeting. And I initially thought it was just migraine, but then the MRI showed a vague lesion in my pons. So the neurologist here, nobody could understand what it is. During my, while I was setting up the meeting, I knew that David would respond within seconds. You write something to him, he had this BlackBerry and he would immediately respond by email. At that time, there was no WhatsApp or mobile phones. So he had this BlackBerry and he would respond instantly. So I sent my history to him and I wrote to him, and he wrote back saying, maybe this, and think of listeria. So I said, how can it be listeria? There's no way I can have listeria. But, you can't ignore David. And so I looked up to date, and sure enough, it was fitting listeria rhombencephalitis. I started treatment and luckily I improved. I owe it all to David. Otherwise, I would not have been here. I had developed bulbar palsy and all sorts of things, but everything became all right. So I thought when I had written to him, I had written at 12 around midnight Indian time, and I thought he was in USA, and the way he responded within a minute. And then later on, when I called him, I found that he was in Thailand at that time, and it was 3 a.m. at night. And at 3 a.m., this guy responds in a minute. And he gave such a coherent answer, and he told me that, think of this. And I could not believe it. So when I met him next year, I actually, like in our tradition, I went and bowed down to him and put my head on his feet. And I said, I owe my life to you. I owe neuro-otology. I owe the whole setup of the Forum of Indian, and of course, being here and being able to speak to all of you all. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Sudhir. Good to see you.
We have Nicolas Perez here from Madrid, from Spain. Nicolas, would you like to say something?
Yes, for sure, of course. Thank you very much for having me in this brilliant panel and just being the other ENT in all this big field. Because in my personal view, I'm here just to recognize the success and the importance of David's legacy, that is to train the people, whoever these people is. And because mainly of the impact and the health of our patients. I mean, we are, most of us are doctors, our duty is to treat people, patients, and of course, teaching doctors makes the good and the well to spread. And I think this makes David C. the greatest among the great. The personal thing, because this can go very emotional, of course, the personal thing is just to say what I learned from him and what I learn every day. And then goes to my background. My background is an ENT. I trained as a resident in a very strong oncological ENT department. During my 4 years of residency and my first 2 years as a specialist, I think I've done more laryngeal, head and neck, oropharynx surgeries than ever. But for some reason, I got involved in vestibular research. And then there was a very important person in my life that is also Dr. Jose Obeso. He was at my hospital at that time, and he was a little bit like a mentor too. And because I was interested in vestibular disorders, let me tell you which were the books at my hospital at that time. Well, those were the Paparella's textbook of otolaryngology that has a small part in neurotology, and the vestibular part in the surgery of the ear by Michael Glasgow. That was all my studying background. So I began to see a lot of patients. I think also many patients. And in a hospital, when an ENT or neurologist say, I want to see vestibular disorders, you begin to make friends, a lot of friends. Everyone will send you his or her patients. But I was just seeing patients and studying things like that. It's not kind of a very epileptic way of learning. And Jose Obeso told me, you have to meet Dr. David C. He got a phone. There was no internet at that time. He has his car. He asked for an international telephone call, sorry. He was in the office, and he said, okay, I can go to Spain and he can go sometime here to Hopkins. Well, I never was a fellow to him because of my professional academic duties. I was not able to be more than 5 or 6 months out of my hospital here in Spain. But I went so many times there just to Baltimore to visit him. It was kind of, if I go to the US, I have to take a plane to Baltimore, 1, 2, 3 days. The first time was 4 months, and it was just 1 month after my daughter was born. So, my wife didn't like very much that plan, but I think it was the way. What I learned from David C., in my opinion, he put all the pieces of the puzzle in the place. I went with a lot of study, patience, trying to learn, but of course, at the end, there was not a big idea behind this. And I think just seeing patients with him on Wednesday, I met there Richard Lewis, also, and many of the people that you talked here before. And of course, I'm very grateful to all of them. I just being in office with Richard, with Phil Kramer, with all of them. And I learned from many of them, but from David, it was a kind of, this is it, and you have to go this way. This is a differential diagnosis. That's something that was amazing for me. There's a differential diagnosis before vertigo, that it was Meniere or not Meniere at my time. And it was incredible. So I think a lot of him. And of course, when I have a patient, I send to him, or if he's flying over Spain, I try to grab him and take him down and stay at this in Pamplona or in Madrid, seeing sometimes patients, because at the end, this is all what it's about, is just making our patients to live better. And thank you for that, David. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicolas. Thank you, Nicolas.
Excuse me, I was forgetting to share my screen with a photo. Can I do that? This is David for me. This is a photo made in Cádiz. Cádiz is the eldest city in Spain, and I think it's how he sees life. He has seen also and has worked so much that he has a kind of happy smile. Whatever there's a problem, there's a good thing. This photo is credited to Paulette, and when I was telling you about putting the pieces into place, this is what he was seeing from his room. Everything was ordered. Thank you, David. Now finish.
Thank you, Nicolas. May I introduce Leah Levy?
Hi, thanks for having invited me for this. And David, I can't believe that it's been so long since we spent time together at Hopkins. I was a humble ophthalmologist who spent a couple of years between 86 and 88. Spent some of my week with Neil Miller and the rest of my week with David. And I went there, of course, expecting to learn about eye movements, which I felt was one of the more challenging parts of neuro-ophthalmology. But I came away with lessons from David that went far beyond some of the things that he taught me about eye movements. And those have been outlined by a lot of the speakers here. But one of the lessons was that you can have great knowledge, as David does have, but without a great ego. There was a free exchange of ideas without anything seeming judgmental. He was very respectful of learners, so that even my most elementary questions were answered in a way that helped my understanding, was never condescending, and he never made me feel foolish for asking them. And I took those lessons and applied them to my own academic career when I was teaching students and residents and patients, for that matter. And finally, he taught me that it's important to have a balanced life. I recall that a lot of conversations, although they were about eye movements, there were many conversations about the latest book that he was reading, some music that he was enjoying. And that really kind of made me think, yes, you can have a life as well outside of your work pursuits. And David, I will be forever grateful that you have introduced me to Perez Requiem, which I still listen to on a regular basis. Anyway, I'm very grateful to have been taught by you and to have learned some of your life lessons. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you, Leah. Peter Trendlerberg, can I please introduce you and have you speak a bit about David?
Yeah, thank you for letting me say a few words. I had the pleasure to work in David's lab 1998 and 1999. And for today's occasion, I would like to mention two observations that I think illustrate why being there was such a pleasure. As a visiting scientist, I was new in the field, new in the country, and I was very uncertain whether experiments would work out in a limited time, whether data at the end would make sense, and whether referees and grant sponsors would be satisfied with that. And also, I was uncertain where in Baltimore Western Union transfers should best be picked up and where definitely not. But in David's lab from day one, this uncertainty was counterbalanced by a relaxed confidence of everyone, and David in particular, that all this could be done and will work out in the end. As one example, I saw David in a certainly advanced position at that time with, I'm sure, a lot of responsibilities, coming back to the classroom to attend another edition of David Robinson's Control Systems course. So obviously, he did not ask himself questions like, is that too complicated for me as a medical person? Does that take too much time? Does that really pay off eventually? But in contrast, obviously, he was open for what might happen if a small circle of interested people from different backgrounds sat together, listened to that interesting stuff and discussed about that. And I think the second important observation was that David was fully aware, and I think intuitively aware, and aware by character and not by reckoning, that science is residing in the greater context of culture and of course of the scientist's life, and that all that needs to be in equilibrium. So certainly he never pressed work, but in contrast, he offered cultural and social enrichment and encouraged me to explore the countryside. And this really paid off. I still associate with one of the papers, the one with the distributions, the view from the hotel room at Ocean City, which was marvelous. And I did not think, I have no time for a long weekend, I have to work, but I thought, wow, what a view. This is going to inspire me, and this is going to be a great paragraph of that paper. So as you see, there is a lot I have to be grateful for. In addition to all that, thank you, David, for not being mad with me that you had to go to the AAN meeting with that terrible red eye after I put the coil in. Thank you, David.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Peter. Prem is one of the recent fellows who worked with David. Prem, are you here?
Yes, hi, thanks for inviting me. So I'd like to say a few words. I was lucky. I found what I love to do through David Z. As a 19-year-old second-year medical student, I was fortunate to attend David Z's talk at the Huxley Seminar Room in Cambridge on how MRI scanners cause dizziness. I was inspired by how he took a common clinical phenomenon and looked at it in a different way. He applied first principles, formulated a mathematically testable hypothesis, modeled it, and proved it. And at the time, I only learnt about the vestibular system a couple of weeks back. I haven't even heard of the Lorentz force, let alone control systems. So I approached David at the end of the talk and asked if I could spend some time at Hopkins with him in the summer. And he said yes. And my scientific life and love for a particular region of Italy began. So we worked hard that summer, and together we discovered new aspects on vestibular set point adaptation. He was a great teacher, and I learned from him that every single patient was an opportunity to learn something new, as everyone here has already said. I was particularly inspired by the stories and anecdotes he had, such as how he inferred the existence of the oculomotor integrator from a single patient, how pathologies of torsion made sense when viewed from an evolutionary rabbit-eyed brain. And what astounded me most, if I had to pick one, was when I studied how he, along with John Lee and Dave Robinson, could explain periodic alternating nystagmus using control systems, which explained so many things, and including how baclofen worked and how you can make quantifiable predictions. Well, in that particular case, to correctly predict that, if you put a quick head movement, it phase shifted the PAN. And to me, he showed me the path to understanding the brain and health and disease. And I was inspired to do neurology, which I'm doing now, and to teach neurology to my students in Queen Square and Oxford in his way. So for me, he is an example of how to live a fulfilled life. I look around and see a sea of his inspirational friends and former students, which I think is because of his kindness, attention to each person, and just the visionary scientific leadership. He showed me that as a neurologist, you can travel around the world, meet lots of different minds, and spend nearly half the year in a rustic Italian town, enjoying good food and enjoying the rivals team come second place in the Palio. So I thought, he taught me to aim for the gold, and when faced with a challenge, ask myself, if it's easy, why do it? I must say I'm very lucky to know, work with, and be a friend of David Z. So thank you for inviting me here.
Thanks, Prem.
Thank you, Prem. The next is Alex Rufa. Alex, are you here? I see you.
Yes. Yes. Can you hear me? And can you see?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Now we can see you.
Okay. Perfect. I'll share. Let me share my video. Okay. Okay. Thank you for inviting me in this celebration, in this very nice meeting. And I met for the first time and visited for the first time the David Z Lab in 2001, when at that time my life was very, very different, and it was a very important period for me. And when visited his lab, I visited his lab with no experience on research and no background on eye movement. So after 2 weeks, and David Z asked me, Alessandra, but why are you here? And I just replied, just because I want to learn about eye movement, but I really needed an inspiration at that time, because it was a very strange period. So David started with his kind of inspiration, and we started an inspiration like that.
Okay, we're going to demonstrate now.
So he started shaking my head, and 100 sessions of trust with a search coil, and finally inspiration came. I remember.
So, right at my nose. First, I'm going to move your head slowly. Then I'm going to move it a little faster to my nose. Right at my nose. Perfect. Now we're going to do some head key translation to draw. So right at my nose. Slowly. Then a little faster. Right at my nose. I'll do the work. That's it.
So after this, and we started with research, and we have a lot of interest in eye movement, and we built up an eye tracking lab in Siena. But besides science, so method, rigor, trust, and passion, David inspired me a lot of non-scientific human things that are perfectly associated to research and science. And particularly, this is the one possible association of science with friendship and fun. This is one very nice period in 2015 in Bethesda, with Lance Optican and Paulette, David, and Donna. And another possible association of science is with culture and conviviality. So this is another inspiration from David Z and John Lee, And this is a meeting in Siena, on neuro-ophthalmological meeting in Siena, in Piazza del Campo, where during the period of Palio. And another association of science was with family and holiday. So we spend a lot of time in my family, with my family. So Paulette and David became my family too, and we have a lot of fun period, fun time, and and this is the last one is just to testify the link between David Z and Siena, and probably I suspect that David Z was itself inspired by Siena in a way. And I don't know if possible, but I believe that it is possible. Thank you, David. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to start this very interesting trip in eye movement, and to be part of this very nice group of people, and I want to thank also John Lee and Lance Optican. They helped me in growing up and in human sense, and for being me very close in difficult period of my life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, Alessandra, I definitely am still inspired by Siena.
I know.
I believe Dr. Fetter was in the attendees list, but I don't see him there or in panelist anymore. I don't know what happened. We wanted to move him. In any case, we have 4 more people. I think we will do well. The next is Dr. Paul Chen. Paul, where are you? There.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi. Yes, we can, and we can see you all as well.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Paul Chen, a neurologist from Taiwan. Today is one of the most important festivals in Taiwan and China, the Moon Festival. All the families get together to watch the beautiful moon. So I'm very happy that I can say something to David Z in this important festival. My teacher during my residency, Su Tongcai, was David Z's fellow long ago when they were both young. But I never met David Z until 2010 in the Barony Society meeting in Iceland. During that meeting, I went up to say hi. Hi, David Z. You are my teacher's teacher. Can I just take a picture with you? Then I got a photo, just one photo. 2 years later, I wrote a paper about vibration-induced nystagmus, but didn't know who can give me advice. Then I remembered that, oh, I still have one photo. So I emailed to David Z with my paper and the photo, and hope David Z remembered me. Of course, he didn't remember me, but he still gave me a lot of important comments and even edited my poor English in the paper. After this, David Z introduced me to my mentor, David Newman-Toker, and changed my life. When I worked in Hopkins, David Z told me many things. Among them, the most impressive one is his evolutionary theory about skew deviation, the rabbit in the brain. What an interesting idea. After I came back to Taiwan, he kept supporting me and helped me answer my clinical questions. He never sent me the answer directly, but sent me a lot of papers to inspire me. But amazingly, he can always find the paper he wants from his brain. So in my mind, David Z is not only the master of eye movement, but also the most kind and generous person in the world. I would like to say, thank you so much, David Z. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul. I
Thank
must
you.
say that David Newman-Toker gave his best regards. Unfortunately, he had to be in the airplane during this time, so he could not connect from anywhere, but he said hello to everyone. Kiara Strathoff, please, would you be able to, I think she's busy on phone. Maybe we will come to her next. I will ask Alicia Mesh. Ari, are you here?
Yes, I will just share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, okay. Okay, so this photo was taken, this was my favorite time in US. It was a Thanksgiving event at Dr. Z and Paulette house with other fellows. So my name is Alicia Mesh, and I'm a neurologist from Israel. And after completing a fellowship in neuroophthalmology at the University of Toronto, I came for a second fellowship in neurology and eye movement disorders at Johns Hopkins. So Dr. Dan Gold and Dr. Amir Kharadman that spoke today provided me with excellent clinical training. So thank you. So several years after I came across the Bible, The Neurology of Eye Movement by John Lee and David Z, I joined Dr. Z's ataxia clinic on Fridays morning. As soon as I woke up the next morning, my email box was overflowing with papers regarding patients we had seen. The papers were so interesting and relevant to the patients who we had just seen that it was impossible to me to stop reading them. Sorry. Okay. So the typical scenario was that I would ask a question, then receive a flood of relevant papers in my email box. This led to discussions about the papers, which led me to ask further questions and so on. Dr. Z gradually introduced me to papers requiring knowledge of linear algebra, calculus, physics, control systems, and probability theory. The way in which Dr. Z uses mathematics and control systems to understand how the brain functions both in normal state and in neurological disorders really amazed me. By the end of the year, Dr. Z invited me to stay another year for research. He stated that this year it would be like a sabbatical. He would read papers and discuss them with me. So I call this year Paid to Think. Dr. Michael Almagi from Australia shared with us eye movement recording of a patient that was seen in Turkey. And Dr. Z suggested that I work on modeling her eye movements under the guidance of Jorge Otero Milan. Jorge Otero Milan was in charge on giving us, the group, a mathematical refresher for every paper that was relevant to our project in order to facilitate understanding. So, of course, this seemed like impossible. But you can see that what Dr. Z could imagine came true, and these are two papers that relating to modeling eye movements of the patient. So I opened an ophthalmology clinic in Israel, and it is because of Dr. Z that I'm able to relate physiology to eye movements disorders in a way that I never could have imagined. As part of our weekly Zoom meetings, Dr. Z, Dr. Jorge, Otero, Milan, and I exchange ideas and we collaborate on new projects. So Dr. Z is dear to me personally, and my sincere thanks goes out to you for taking care of me professionally and beyond.
Thank you, Ari.
Thank you, Ari.
I want to invite Stefan Hageman. You're on mute.
No, I'm. Can
Now
you hear
you're
me?
good.
So thank you for being part of your community. I know, unfortunately, David is 20 years older than I am. I met him in 1992. I heard his first talk. It was a talk on 10 minutes, and I knew there you want to go. 1997, I made it to Johns Hopkins only for 3 months to work with him in research, and it was a great time. And since then, it is. Since he made me a researcher, because of him, I changed. First, I made my ENT specialty, and then I went to Johns Hopkins, and then I made my neurologist. I think, the only one in the world with both specialties, and he did that. And I learned so much from him, like all of us. And what I learned is to teach everything you know. If you can't teach anything that the others don't know already, you have to learn more. That's the way he thinks. He's always ahead of us, ahead of everybody, and he teaches everybody everything he knows. The next day he will know more. That is what is so fantastic in him. When I went in 1997 to Johns Hopkins, he was already the sun. He is the sun in research I know. And therefore, I'm a little bit sad on this conference because he just a week ago told me that he wants to reduce his work at Johns Hopkins and in his work, and to have more fun in life. That is, he can have it. He earned it so much, but we see now the sundown. So without him, we have a little bit of sundown. Well, sundown can still be very impressive. So I hope we see an impressive sundown. Thank you very much, David.
Thanks, Stefan.
Thank you, Stefan. Dominic Straman, who works in the same university as Stefan, also wanted to join, and he gives best regards. He has some other commitments. That's why he could not make it to the meeting, and same applies to Alex Tarnotzer. Is Chiara available? Chiara, please.
Thank you very much for including me. I'm a neurologist in the Netherlands, but my career started in Leiden. And as an undergraduate student in 1986, I came to Hopkins together with Marina. We wanted to do research. We did a project. And it was our first visit to the United States, we were impressed about the large cities in Hopkins. But the welcome in your lab, David's lab, was very welcome. And for us, the eye movements were by then quite complicated, but we got our own project. And I remember we did investigation of the optokinetic after-nystagmus in normal healthy people to assess the normal values. And we did this on the chair with the people in the chair, and there was a rotating drum with the black squares. And when the light went off, we could assess the optokinetic after-nystagmus. We had a great time. I learned very much how to set up a project, how to do research, how to work in a team. Marina already also mentioned it. It was so nice. We were included. We were part of the team. You were interested in us, although we were just two students from the Netherlands, and you called us Dutch too, I remember. And even that that period resulted in a paper for us, for which we were first and second authors, which was a good start for our career in neurology. And what I also learned from you is the care for patients. And one of the former speakers already said it. You taught me how to learn and to enjoy every patient, and you can learn from each patient. You can learn something, and that's what I teach my students and residents also. So I still think of you often, and now I hear you that you are ending your career. I wish you all the best. Have a good, enjoy your free time, and now in a good health, of course. Thank you very much for what we learned.
Chiara, thank you.
Thank you, Chiara. I think Dr. Fetter had left from attendees, and I think he's not also on panelist. This actually concludes the list that I have here. And if any of you are here and you want to say anything more, please just say that now. I think we are a bit over time. Elena, is your video long? Can we quickly take a look at it? Or
yes, I'll share it.
Oh yeah, thank you then. So as I said, I share with Professor Z many professional and personal moments. And so if you can send the video, you will see a personal moment that I share with him. Can you please send the video?
Mansi, do you have the video?
Yes, just sharing, just a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sorry for the inconvenience. I'm definitely not perfect as Professor Z. So. Okay, perfect. So this is the video I sent as the first slide. So this is my 1-day-old boy. And if you can play the video, this is what I sent Professor Z.
Hey, cucciolo. Hey. Guarda come segue la voce.
And if we can move to the second slide now.
Dai, fanno sorrisere.
You will see all the message that I received from my friends and colleagues and relatives. And this is what I received from Professor Z. Can you please enter? Okay, video shows light gates evoke nystagmus with a cerebellum that has not been to the school of life. The integrator is still pretty much working on what evolution gave the brainstem. Flocculus is still quiet. Not the angular VOR is perfectly compensatory. Do a translational VOR with the body supine and rotate around an earth vertical axis with the head eccentric. You will see that the tilt translation ambiguity has not yet been solved. Nodulus also not yet working. Write a paper, Elena. Well, okay, we can finish to share the video. So I think Professor Z is still waiting for the paper. And to conclude, among many neurological and scientific skills that I learned from you, Professor Z, what I value most is 2 teachings that you won't find in any book. The first one, to be humble. A bright mind can learn something from anybody. The second one, even when dealing with rare diseases with few therapeutic options, there is always something we can do to make someone else's life better. And definitely, Professor Z, made so many lives better, including mine. And finally, what I will never, never forget after attending for so many years the ataxia clinic is Chase, Dash, Tucker, Dickens, and Phil.
Thank you. I think you should have more children so we can have a bigger N.
Asif, I just want 20 seconds.
Yes, please.
So, David, thank you. I propose we give him a standing ovation for all that he means to everybody here. He's done so much, and I do not believe he will ever go down into the sun. He's always there for us, and whenever you write to him, even if there's no BlackBerry now, he will respond within minutes. So, David, I want to give you a standing ovation. Thank you. And I propose everybody gives him an ovation. Thanks.
Professor Gita, would you like to say something?
Can I have 1 minute?
Oh, yes, of course. You are going to have lots of minutes.
No, 1 minute, Max.
You have many more minutes. we are actually
minutes.
eager to listen to you.
1 minute is all you're going to get. It's getting late. They did one of these for Jerry Posner a few months ago, and after everybody spoke, he kind of said he asked his wife, "What should I do?" And she said, "Why don't you just sit down and shut up?" So I'm going to be very, very quick about this. First of all, thanks Asif, Sudhir, Chandra for organizing this, and the Indian Neurology Society. I've been lucky. That's what it's about. I've been lucky because I had great mentors, Dave Robinson, Guy McCann, Cogan, and Walsh. I've been lucky because I've had fantastic colleagues, John Lee, Lance Optican, especially, and all my Italian colleagues in many countries around the world. Most lucky has been the students and the fellows and the visiting scientists that have come to work with me. They are the reason for whatever success we've had at Hopkins. They've all been bright and inquisitive and hardworking and great people. And it's allowed me an opportunity to know people all over the world. The world is really in a mess now, but there are a lot of wonderful individuals out there, and I'm so happy I've been able to interact with them. And finally, I must thank my wife, Paulette. Just one very quick anecdote. When I first met her, she's a language teacher. First language was French. She knew nothing about science, mathematics, geometry, nothing. But when I mentioned the word saccade, she got very excited because saccade comes from a French word, saccaire, which means a flip of a sail or a pull on the rein. And she thought, if my field has French words in, this is the kind of guy that she really wants to be with. So this has been a great day for me. Thank you all very much. And I hope we can keep interacting at many different levels. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Lisa, are you there?
Yes, Chandrasekhar.
Yeah.
David, I just wanted to say thank you, and thank you to John also, this being a true inspirational session. You two probably won't remember me, but I bumped onto many of your Meet the Professor early morning program where only 5 or 6 people would attend because they're all early morning things, but you had all the time for any dumb question that we would throw at them, and we come back to our hospitals and we converted them to projects. One of the notable things is I remember telling you at one of those WFN sessions that how we had 11 or so Miller-Fisher syndrome patients with peculiar eye things, and how then you both wanted us to work on them and so on, and they have been converted to postgraduate degrees of local trainees here in Australia. So thank you. Thank you for wonderful, the inspirational session and inspiration that you have done for generations to come.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor David Z. Professor John Lee, Asif Sheikh, and Dan Gordon, and all the panelists. It was a truly inspiring session. We learned, and I think we can change our life. The way we think, the way we behave, and the way we live. I think this truly inspiring session, and it was a great session, and we can see that the emotions running very high. And Professor David Z, I think, and everybody, I would agree that it was a great tribute and celebration for Professor David Z. Thank you very much for being with us, and thank you all. Thank you, Professor Griswold, Steve Lewis, the WFN IN President, Dr. Nirmal Surya, and all the others who could contribute. Thank you, Tisa. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Nice to know everyone here. We all
Stay well.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, David.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Thank you, Dr. Z.
Thank you very much, Asif.
It
Thank
was
you.
my
Thank you so
government
much.
computer. My government computer was acting up this morning. It did not want Zoom all of a sudden tonight. It's like funny. Every day you wake up and something comes up on that government laptop. Okay.
It can always be worse, Asif.
I know. Your famous words. See you guys later, hopefully sometime soon.
Yeah,
All right.
sure.
Bye.
Take care. Thank you all again. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I am